going to be talking about obstacles, something that I'm sure that we all know something about. And, it's an interesting thing, this idea of an obstacle, Sometimes these obstacles are things that are very personal to us, where we kind of get in the way of ourselves. The obstacles that, can get in our way, sometimes they're personal things, sometimes it's our own mind, can you relate to that? That sometimes it's the way that you're thinking, or that you keep repeating those thoughts and they become the obstacle themselves. Yes, our own mind can get in the way, and I think also, our attitude can sometimes get in the way and prevent us from going forward freely, or perhaps in a way that, we would like to be going forward. Very personal thing that can get in the way. Our past can be an obstacle, can't it? And there might be an aspect of our past that we can't seem to move on from. Now that can certainly, have a very, very big impact. I'm going to have a look at some aspects on how we can, move forward, and the kinds of things that we can start to think about into our lives, some practices perhaps. So it's not only us that gets in our way. I'm sure that you will agree. Environment, can actually be an obstacle. Perhaps there's, something in the form of condition. It might be around work. That kind of thing can be an obstacle, and it can certainly get in our way. We can have social things that can get in our way as well. There can be people that get in our way. They can be certain friends or family members. But, I'm sure that you're understanding what it is that I'm starting to allude to. So let's have a look at this, okay? Let's really start to dig in and define this. Really, the first thing that we have to think about is that most of the time we have a lack of clarity. We can't seem to see a way forward that goes beyond the obstacle. So the obstacle is sort of in the way. An incredibly difficult thing to try and see around, can't it? If it's right there, it can be very difficult to see around that obstacle. The thing is that we have to get really clear about what it is that we want. We want to continue to see this obstacle, or can we get some clarity around a way forward? Not clear. What happens is that, of course, we're vague, and it's a little bit hit and miss. It can be kind of neither here nor there, and we're sort of taking our chances, really. And we don't really want to be doing that if we can help it. Yet the idea in our head that clarity is what we create. Okay? Clarity is actually a decision. Did you know that? Did you know that clarity was a decision? Well, it actually is. We can decide to be clear. And what happens is when we decide to be clear, we choose one path. Okay? We have one direction in which we're choosing to travel down. And what happens is this actually helps us to actually create clarity. Now, yourself, when you're trying to do loads of things, when you're doing loads of things, it's really difficult to be clear, isn't it? Like the more you have to do, the fuzzier you get in your head, and the more confusion that comes out of it. So it can be really our choice to make a decision to actually burrow in and move in one direction with one approach and really focus on that. And then the clarity will come. The clarity will come. Clarity is a really interesting topic, actually. And, if you were to do this now, if you were to pick anything right now in the room that you're sitting in, and you just put your focus on that thing, that one thing, and you just stayed with it for a minute, do you know what? You would find out so much about that one thing. That's the really interesting thing, is that when we do focus ourselves, we see more. And when we're actually focusing just on the obstacle, that is all we see. So we can't continue to focus on the obstacle. What we need to do is focus on a way around the obstacle, not on the obstacle itself. So we're going to be looking at different ways and different strategies that we can do that. But I think clarity, I'd like you to consider this idea of clarity. I think that also when we try to achieve too much at once, I think that can actually create more obstacles than the thing that we're actually trying to move past. So it can be a little bit unrealistic, and we tend to overreach. And when we overreach, we tend to find ourselves with our energy scattered all about the place, and we don't become very potent. And what we want to do is we want to become a real potent force in our own lives. If we're going to take back charge, if we are going to move past these obstacles, no matter what they are in your life, if we are going to move past them, then what we need to do is we need to take our power back. And if we're scattered, our power's diminished. So we want to have as much power, as much focus as we possibly can to move beyond these particular things that are actually obstructing us. So, I've spoken about taking action, but there's also that side when we don't take action. So, that sort of passive kind of situation where we have the obstacle there and, we're not sure what we're going to do. And so we just sort of sit and we don't take action at all. So there's something called the law of effort. And, if we don't put effort in, then we're not going to achieve anything. So we really can't sit back. We can't sit back and hope that it will happen. Because you know what? It's a very, very slim chance that that's going to happen. Very, very slim chance. And you're just going to stay within that framework. So you're not going to move past that obstacle. So that's not something that I would recommend that you do. We need to apply effort, and we need to place that effort in the right direction, in the direction we want to go in. Now, we don't want to go towards the obstacle, do we? That's not sort of something that we want to do. But it's funny how a lot of people actually just stay fixated on the obstacle, believing that they can't move past it. Change is one constant in the world, and it's something that you couldn't stop if you wanted to, actually. So, it is going to change. But I think that what's going to happen is that it will change in a way that perhaps you may not like. So what we need to do is be instrumental in the way in which we pursue change. So that is something that we want to do. So we have to decide to be clear. So we want to create clarity. We want to initiate change, and we want to do that in a direction that is going to serve us, not in the direction of the obstacle itself, not in that direction. When we stubbornly stick to, a kind of losing strategy, whether it's focusing on the obstacle or just stay with this partner a little bit longer or in my job a little bit longer, why do we do that? Why do we do that? Why do you do that, do you think? Have you ever said to yourself, I think I've stayed in this a little bit too long, or, you know, I should have left years ago, or moved on, or whatever it may be? Have you ever felt that you've overstayed? I'm sure there's something that you can think of that you've overdone, that your timing hasn't quite been right. Why do you think we do that? Why do you think we do it? Do you think it's because we're hopeful that things might improve? Do you think it could be that? Do you think it could be also that, you know, we want to give people the benefit of the doubt, maybe? You know, that could be it. Fear of the unknown, change, yes. It's a big one, isn't it? The fear of the unknown. Fear of change. Yeah, absolutely. You know, fear will certainly hold us, you know, in our place. It definitely will. I think that, you know, something's not working. If we really got a lot to lose, really, like let's just think about this for a minute. Something isn't working and we let go of it. It wasn't working anyway. It wasn't working anyway. So anything could be better than what we have. Would you agree with that? Would you agree with that? That is the truth of it. I know people say, oh, the devil that you know, and all that kind of stuff. But really? Really? Could it be that much worse than what you have in front of you? There is a comfort almost in the uncomfortable, isn't there? You know, people become very comfortable in that uncomfortable space. We're kidding ourselves and we're on borrowed time, really. We can sit and be in that stalemate, but, you know, something has got to give somewhere, because, look, even if you sit stagnant, even if you sit there, with the way in which things flow, anything that's not moving is eventually going to decay. It is eventually going to decay. And we know that decay is not pretty. We know that, don't we? We know that, you know, as something begins to rot, it's not a good look. It's not a good look at all. And the feeling of that is dreadful, really dreadful. So it's not good to be stuck in that, is it? Not at all. Not at all. I want to remind ourselves that, you know, sometimes we need to shift something, just something, you know, even just one little thing is actually going to make a difference. And, you know, even if it's just your attitude for now, even if it's just that, even if it's nothing really physical, but maybe it could be your attitude. Maybe you could begin to have some self-belief. Maybe that might be a great place to start. You know, maybe you could think about, you know, trusting yourself, trusting in life, maybe. Maybe that's a place that you could go to. So, you know, I think that sometimes what happens is that these limiting beliefs that we have about a situation or about ourselves can really determine the way in which we choose to be with something. So those beliefs kind of sit there and we say, well, you know, I could do worse, you know, those kinds of things. Have you ever said that to yourself? Oh, it could be worse. I mean, it's not great, but it could be worse. I think sometimes that's a little bit of a cop-out. You know, I know if I've ever said that, I've actually felt like I'm copping out, because for one reason or another, I feel like I'm stuck and I can't move. So to compensate so that I feel, you know, a little bit better about it, I will say something like that. It could be worse. And then I kind of don't feel quite so bad, do I? but it could be better. What about if I just said that? What about instead of saying it could be worse, I said, well, it could be better? I wonder how I'd feel then. I don't think I'd feel like that I was copping out. I think that maybe I might feel like I might need to take some action. Maybe that's something that I might need to do. When we have a negative belief, it can certainly sort of set a tone for the experience and for our lives. Negative thought, when we're thinking negatively, it is never, ever, ever going to produce a positive result. Never, ever. It just doesn't happen. We need to shift the way in which we choose to talk to ourselves. And saying things like, well, it could be worse. Please, the next time that you say that to yourself, perhaps you might need to say it with a little bit more honesty so that you can hear it differently. Just really look at what it is that you're saying when you say these words. Mind is very powerful, absolutely. But we don't tend to use it properly, do we? It tends to go on autopilot, or it's very heavily influenced by fear or by our past. So we're just regurgitating those kinds of negative experiences. What we want to do is become really proactive with our mind and use it to our advantage, not let it run away and have its way with us. We need to develop a different mindset. And not only that, I really want to caution you to really just be careful about what comes out of your mouth. Because look, what we say, we actually bring into reality. So be really, really careful about what you let out of here. More than we are the speaker, we are the listener. So please be aware of this. We need to develop a mindset that is a can-do mindset. So if an obstacle's there, we can just simply see it as something that we need to reroute around. That it doesn't need to block us or stop us. We see it there, but we don't have to allow it to be the boulder in our life, okay? It is an obstacle, yes, but it's something that you can climb, okay? It's something that you can climb. So we must remind ourselves that it's not going to stop us. It might slow us down a little bit, but it doesn't have to stop us. When challenges come along, that's the gift that they give us. They give us the opportunity to reassess our position. It gives us an opportunity to look at our lives and say, well, okay, am I going to now begin to take on a different attitude or a different approach? What is it that I need to do going forward? What do I need to change? And, I think that then that way we can begin to consider a different way forward. And some of us sure have forced change, whatever change, however change comes about. I think that if we could view it as something that is necessary, and even if you're losing something that you feel that, you don't want to let go of, perhaps there's something better there for you. And you may not let go of it on your own, and therefore change has to be forced. So I do believe everything happens for a reason. Let's think about these positive aspects of ourselves and what we need to do. If we're lacking these positive inputs, we do really need to be proactive in the way that we source these things out. So let's say, for example, you need to have some encouragement. Well, you might need to read something, listen to a podcast, chat to a friend. Be proactive in the way in which you choose to really help your energy along. So what you want to do is those inputs, the things that you're putting into your mind, into your heart, even into your body, make sure that they're things that are working for you and not things that are working against you. Because when you face these obstacles, regardless of what they are, you want to be in tip-top shape in every possible way. And, often what we do, we meet an obstacle and we find ourselves feeling really depleted, this negative attitude because the situation is negative, and, we feel like we've got shackles around our feet and we're tired and how are we going to do this? And, one thing just leads to another thing. And look, before we know it, we're flat on the floor. That is not a way to meet an obstacle. It definitely isn't. And it's not going to put you in the best space so that you can find a way forward in a way that's going to take you in a direction that is going to empower you. So please, really be aware of your energy, really manage this, put some affirmations up on the wall. Write up, I can do this. Remind yourself. I've got papers everywhere. Put them up on the walls, blue tack them up. And so when you're walking past something in the hallway, it's a reminder of something. We've really got to be proactive in the way in which we choose to encourage ourselves. We need all the encouragement we can get. And you know what? You, believe it or not, are the best one to decide which is the right kind of encouragement that I need right now. It's you. It's you that can decide that. So really look at, okay, what can I do here to help myself? Because I really think that you're the best person to be on your team. You really are. So look, sometimes we refuse to confront a problem. There might be something there lingering. It's been lingering for a long time. It could have been there for years. You kind of sat on it and it's just gone along from one year to the next. Even if you've left something sitting there, when is going to be a good time for you to actually address it? When? When would be a good time, do you think? When? In another 5 years? Well, you're 5 years older, so that's now 10 years. How many years are we going to let this go on for? How many years? It's not working for you. So why are you choosing to leave it in your life? I'm not sure why you would do that. Perhaps you need to start to think about this a little bit differently. Any pain that you may feel because you need to alter something, let something go, take a risk, any temporary pain that you may feel is only short term, okay? It's just short term. Because look, what's your option? What's your option? To stay where you are? To stay stuck? Is that your option? Is that the best option that you can come up with? Really? Is that the best option you've got? I think you might need to rethink it. I think you might need to rethink it, because I can't imagine that that's your best option. If you're afraid of a little bit of pain and you're prepared to put up with a whole lot of pain to stay with that thing that's blocking you, I think you've got it the wrong way around. I think it's the wrong way around. I think you might need to rethink it, perhaps. Maybe you might have been looking at it from the wrong direction. Don't know. What do you think? maybe. Sometimes when there's an obstacle, some people can try and skip ahead, you know, not deal with the obstacle, but just kind of fly by it. And the obstacle's still sitting there, but they focus on other things. And they'll skip, and some people call it brushing it under the carpet. You know, I get busy with other things. You know, that's how some people choose to deal with their obstacles in life. You know, if you keep brushing something underneath the carpet, you're going to have a great big wad of stuff underneath there to deal with at some point in time. So you are going to have to deal with it at some point. And when you do, instead of it being, you know, a little speck, it's going to be a great big mountain of stuff to deal with. And, you know, quite possibly an explosion by the time it, you know, gets to the other end. Again, I'm not sure that that is the best course of action to take. I'm really not sure about that. You might like to also consider that. I know it's hard. I know it seems like the very thing that's blocking you is the hardest thing of all, because that's what's blocking you at this particular point in time. At what point do we decide to just have a little bit of faith in our own ability to actually be able to really move forward freely? At what point? At what point are we going to choose to believe in ourselves? We can take control of this. We can take control. And just simply deciding to address it. And even if you just have to chip away, tiny steps, you know, just to until you can build some momentum. But you know what? Even if you've got a great big boulder in front of you, if you keep chipping, you take a chisel and you just keep chipping away, eventually you're going to break that boulder down. Eventually you will. And certainly if you're persistent and consistent with your efforts, then you will break it down. Could we identify the positives? Could we find, even in the obstacle itself, is there something positive that we could, you know, connect with and really kind of look at? And it might be just a very small positive, but it's something for us to navigate towards. And then that could open out for us and show us more. But if we just stay staring at the obstacle and leaving it where it is and not choosing to find something else to see beyond it as a way forward, we're going to become stuck. You're going to be stuck there. You will. So could that help us to gain a little bit of perspective, perhaps? You know, just finding some positive aspect to help us to gain perspective when it comes to a way forward. It may. What about, could it perhaps, in gaining that perspective, could it perhaps expand our options maybe? Maybe it might open up some other options for us to explore just by, you know, focusing on that positive aspect. It could. We won't know unless we try. So what about stepping back emotionally? What about if we weren't quite so emotional when it comes to these obstacles? It's important for you not to lose yourself emotionally to the events in life. when we do, we feel powerless. We're swept up in the emotion, despair, doom and gloom, negativity, whatever it is, sadness, and it just holds us in that place. So is it possible for you to step back emotionally from the obstacle that you have in your life and decide to be clear, decide to look for clarity? And it might be that you sit there and you kind of, do a bit of a brain dump, like as things are coming up, you get a piece of paper and a pen and you just sort of write one word, that might be coming up for you. And a few words together on the page and start to really explore what's going on in the deeper parts of yourself. If you're lost, that's a great thing to do, just to consider. And I don't think writing an essay is necessary. It's just a few words just to really enlighten you about the situation of where you feel you are. But certainly stepping back from the emotionality of it is really going to help you a lot. I'm sure you'll agree with me, when you're over emotional about something, it always seems worse. It does. It always seems so much worse. So if you can step back, that would be fantastic. Can we adjust our priorities? With these obstacles there, is it possible to adjust your priorities? Is that what needs to happen? Do you need to sit down and make a list about all of your priorities that you feel that you need to have in regards to this particular obstacle? I really hope that one of your priorities is you at the top of your list, and I really hope that your well-being is something that you prioritize, because I know if you do, then you will change your life. You will change your life. Perhaps it's the fact that you don't value yourself enough to move past these areas that you feel so incredibly bound by. I'd really like you to consider yourself in this and really be with you and what your ideas for well-being would be, and then how you're going to chart your way to achieving that. How are you going to do that? I know when you do make something a priority, regardless of what it is, it doesn't matter what it is, it's an amazing force of energy when we actually choose to prioritize something. I'm sure you've done it. You've done it in your life. It might have been that you prioritized your health and then you went to the gym and then you ate properly, and it's been that you prioritized your work and then you got your bonus, or you became manager of the department. Look to anything that you've truly, truly prioritized, that you have given yourself to. And I know that you are going to see that you have actually achieved results in that area. Now, sure, it may not have been sustained. It may not be long term. It may not have given you what you may have set out to achieve. But the fact that you prioritized it sent more energy into that particular area of your life. And that energy is the very thing that enabled you to get those results. So prioritizing things is very important. And, I think everyone should have every day have a priority in their day. And I really do. And I think that it can't just be the same thing every single day. I think mixing it up and changing the focus is really good for the mind. You know, it's really good for the mind, really good for the focus. So just setting a priority for the day, and you might write something up and stick it up on your wall, you know, that you're prioritizing for the day. And, you know, it might be your attitude that you're prioritizing for the day. You know, it might be something to do with your work. It might be something to do with your children. But pick something that you want to prioritize for the day and focus in on that, because it will actually help your focus. Your focus is something that we need to keep practicing. We need to keep bringing it back. So the important thing here is not to quit. Don't quit. Don't give up. If you give up, then you never get past the obstacle. You never get past it. I often say to people who are overwhelmed with their life, that they're not coping, they've got too many things to do, I'll say to them, okay, you need to prioritize one thing in your day, and you achieve that, and then you will feel a sense of accomplishment. And that way, anything else that comes after that is a bonus. Anything else. But you know what? The problem is that we set hundreds of tasks for the day and we don't achieve anywhere near what we want to. So we never feel accomplished. We always feel like we're behind, always. So we don't want to feel like that. So prioritizing is a great way for us not to feel like that. And when we prioritize and we do achieve it, to actually really sit down and look at that and go, wow, I did that, fantastic. Like really give ourselves permission to feel good about it. Look, the demands of life, you know, they're huge, you know. We could just keep going, couldn't we? We could just keep going. So I think it's important, you know, for us to acknowledge that, you know, we've met that priority. That's something that we've done for the day. You can prioritize to approach your obstacles as well, putting them front and center, you know, just to say, okay, this is a priority of mine, and, you know, I'm going to be proactive, and I'm going to pick something today that is going to take me in a different direction to just being with this obstacle and just accepting that that's it. I can't do anything about this. I'm just going to shift something, just something, and I'm going to try it, and I'm just going to do something. Whether it's your obstacle is weight, and, you know, that's something in your day is you cut bread out for the day, you know, just as an example. If your obstacle is one of your children, maybe you could try different attitude. You could try and prioritize calmness or patience. So there's so many different possibilities if we're willing to explore them. Sometimes we don't really remember that that's an option. We're just so stuck in it all. But it is an option, and there's always another way. So begin to explore what's possible. And I know that you will find your way through. I know that you can do that. But, you know, you really just have to make a start. I'm so glad that we had this opportunity to have a chat about something that is so important and so prevalent. I really hope that something has resonated and you can take something away and implement it. And even if it's just a reminder of something that, you know, perhaps you have been practicing in the past, but, you know, you might have been a little bit consumed by the obstacle and you've forgotten. And let's hope that you can move on from there.